All right, guys, before I get him in, let's just go through the drill. Him and I talked earlier today. Time is really going to be up to him. If he wants to stay on for the remaining of the show, we'll love to have him. Give you a little bit of background. Actually, he just told me he has about 30 minutes, so that works. Basically, he's going to come on here, man, and teach you guys a little bit. So get your notepads. I'm telling you right now, this guy is oh, man, he's the truth in terms of knowing football. So I'm going to bring him on, man. I don't want to steal any of his thunder. So let's go ahead and get him in. Hey, Dub, man, what's going on tonight?
Hey, it's going pretty good, Sim. It's nice to be on with you guys.
Oh, man.
What's going on?
I know.
Folks have been waiting.
Yeah.
Well, man, I'll let you steer the car, man. You go ahead and drive. I told these guys earlier before you came on that, you're definitely going to, kind of talk about, match and label and things like that. And maybe, some of the idea about the pattern matching and how these guys are going to read plays. And I'll throw this at you real quick, and maybe you can fit this in. I will admit here on the air, I don't know exactly the difference. Like what happens in a standard cover two and a tamper two. I know it has something to do with, I believe, the linebacker coverage. But if you could touch on that as well, your time here. But I'll let you take it away, man.
Well, yeah, it's first off, like I said, it's great to be on with you guys and share with you some of the things that we're doing this year for Madden NFL 17. It's an exciting project to work on, and definitely looking forward to the release date, August 23rd, when the masses finally get a chance to get their hands on it. But as far as some of the coverage concepts, I'm sure we can start off with the match stuff. I know essentially cover three match is basically a form of cover three in which we're trying to essentially defend the seams, the weak areas of the coverage when the offense is in a standard set, 2x2 sets, things of that nature. The weaknesses of your traditional cover three is obviously the two vertical seams outside of the safeties and between the corners, outside of the deep middle safety, and inside of the corners. So the thing about the match concept, obviously, it was developed as a way, we can eliminate that threat and still play our 8-man front defense, if you will, and while at the same time defending all the different route concepts that hurt your traditional cover three defenses. So that's kind of some of the theory and the background of where the coverage came from. Obviously, I'm sure a lot of your listeners are familiar with Nick Saban and Bill Belichick, and those guys. They sort of made the coverage famous, if you will. As far as some of the rules, it's we pretty much we talked to a couple of different coaching staffs, but actually, to be totally honest with you guys, this is something that we've actually been working on for quite some time now. This is something that just literally just came up. But to kind of give you guys some background, we had some coaches come in who've actually familiar with our game, and they actually showed us a lot of the different nuances of it, because sometimes you bring coaches in, they'll give you some of it, but it's great when you start networking and meeting guys who are gracious enough with their time to really answer all your questions and actually really give you a lot of the feedback on the things you're doing. So with that said, how we play it, it's simple rules. Anytime we get a 2x2 set, we get a pro set, we get 3 wide receivers, 2 backs in the backfield. When we get number 1 and 2, we count receivers outside in, just like we talked about in the blog, 1 to 2 to 3 from the right side of the field. Same thing from the left side of the field. 1 and 2, if they go vertical, outside corner, and the seam flat player, well, they're going to match and carry those vertical routes, essentially man to man. So think cover 1. How we have, from a technique standpoint, our seam flat players, they're trying to get on that outside shoulder low shoulder of that number 2 vertical guy. So therefore, if he were to break out, we're sort of in between, naturally between the quarterback and the receiver. And of course, if he goes inside, well, we're pushing him to our help inside. The corners, again, is standard cover 1 technique that we currently play. Now we got some ideas that we want to get to in future iterations of Madden to be a little bit more specific in what we're doing with the deep zone players, but they will match those routes up. In the middle, we got 2 hook curl players, and their whole deal, they're looking at number 3, okay? So we got 2x2 set. Let's say we got 4 verticals. And I'm sure most of your audience is aware that if we get a back going out of the backfield in 4 verticals, he usually up through the line of scrimmage and then he leaks out to the flat. Or you can hot route him to the flat. Whatever number 3, when he goes to the flat, the hook curl player to the side that he releases to, when we are matched with the one in number 2, he has a rule that we call 3 through the flat, which means he's going to essentially pick up number 3 to the flat man-to-man. So now the backside hook curl player, when he sees that, he has to sort of push his drop, if you will, more towards the middle. So essentially now our cover 3 defense has all basically turned into a cover 1 hole concept. So the thing about number 3, it could be a back leaking out to the flat, whether he's hot routed there, he goes through the line on the right side of the formation, then he goes dragging across to the left, or it could be a receiver from the other side of the field. It's not necessarily 1, 2, 3 once the play pre-snap, if you will. It's whoever the final number 3 is. When he gets to the flat, we're going to pick him up, whether he's running a drag route or a flat route, if you will. So that's the basic setup. As far as what do we do when we handle underneath routes, well, starting from outside in, if we get and we actually call this in code, if we get number 1, that's the guy that the cornerback is defending. If he runs a drag route or a shallow route, right now for us, an undercall is a drag route, then he's basically zoning it off. And he's basically undercall. He's alerting the seam flat player and the hook curl player that, hey, I got a guy coming. You got a guy coming inside to you. So that puts those players in zone coverage. So now what is number 2 doing? Well, if number 2 is vertical, well, now the corner, he's squeezing towards number 2, and we got our seam flat player. Now he's essentially getting the reroute on number 2, and now he's zoning it off. So essentially now we're basically playing good old country cover 3, as coaches like to call it. And now we could be playing cover 3 on one side of the field, but based on the route concepts on the other side of the field, we can still be matched. So let's say that drag route, he's going across the field. We got the undercall. Well, let's say 1 and 2 on the other side of the field went vertical and they're matched. Well, again, that drag, when he comes through, the hook curl player on the other side of the field, he picks him up because it's 3 through the flat. So essentially the undercall is communicating to our, other underneath defenders that we have a threat coming through. So basically that's in a nutshell, gives your listeners an idea of how we're playing cover 3 match when we face a 2x2 set.
Sounds good, man. I guess next on the list, they want to know about, and you've seen it yourself on Twitter. I guess you could kind of sum it up, if you will, because I know you could go real deep. But what exactly is happening in a Mabel situation? A lot of people are asking about cover 3 Mabel.
Yeah. So Mabel, for us, we just talked about cover 3 match when we get a 2x2. Pro set, our standard formations. So when we get trips, okay, first off, we have a couple different things that work here. We have a cover 3 match play, nickel normal cover 3 match. And if your users can think back to a Madden 16, When we have cover 3 sky, if you imagine that play, but it's a match concept, but when we get trips, our rotation is away from the trips, okay? So we call that a skate adjustment. So how that works is that once we get number 3, when he runs let's take 4 verticals, for example. That's the easiest way for your audience to visualize it. We get trips 4 verticals. Essentially what we're doing, starting with the corner to the trip side, it's zone because, we're not going to match in trips. He's basically dropping between 2 and 1. The hook curl player to the front side, he's dropping about 18 to 20 yards deep I'm trying to wall off number 2, okay? The curl flat player who's aligned over number 2, we want to get a jam and a quick bump on number 2, and then we're looking to sink under 1. A backside hook curl player, he plays a rule that we call 3 up is 3, which means that he's going to look at that deep over route that I'm sure a lot of your listeners are aware of in trips 4 verticals. He's going to match that route and carry that to essentially all the way to the other side of the field. And then on the backside, based on whatever route concept we got going on, the hook curl player, the backside seam flat player, he's going to essentially be responsible for the first low crosser, which is what we call number 4, coming from the trip side. And then, of course, based on the route that number 1 on the backside runs, we can match that or we can zone it off. So that's what we call skate when we have weak rotation. When we're 3 buzz match, which if your users, again, think back to Madden 16, if you go nickel, normal, cover 3 buzz, imagine that play being a match scenario. Now our rotation is to the strength. So it's the same thing, except that now that we have a safety playing buzz to the side of the trips. So he's, again, same rule. He's essentially taking number 2. He's walling him off 18 to 20 yards deep. We still get our curl flat player who's getting a jam and a reroute on number 2, dropping to number 1. Backside hook curl player taking number 3, and our rule 3 up is 3. And then, of course, we got our backside flat player, backside cornerback playing their techniques. So in code, we call that Mabel. Now, here's the thing. I think there's been some confusion on Twitter and things of that nature. We do have a standalone play call called Mabel. And the reason why we did that, I'm sorry?
No, I was going to say, that I've seen that question numerous times.
Yes, so the reason why we did that, for us, Mabel is a flood coverage concept where we have a hard flat with the nickel corner, but then we have our hook curl player, who's usually front side hook curl player, but we essentially have him in a curl flat assignment. So the reason why we did that is because, with our current zone assignments, we wanted that front side hook curl player, in this instance, a curl flat player, to be able to play any route that's breaking out towards the corner, deep sideline area, if you will, by a number 2 or number 3. So essentially, first and foremost, we want to defend flood concepts. Now, we call it, now I know that the rotation is going to the weak side, but again, terminology is whatever we choose to call it. So, I know there was a post where somebody on Twitter showed a picture from a playbook that they got offline or something somewhere. But anyway, we basically want to make sure that whatever we call it, we understand it. And, we're not really worried about what somebody else who looking in a playbook that they got from Lord knows where, what they call it. So now, with that also being the case, we still got some work to do on the standalone Mabel play, because again, with our curl flat, right now we want it to play exactly like I described to you with our skate and our Mabel adjustments when we're called cover 3 and 3 buzz match to trips 4 verts. So we got some work to do there to handle number 2 in this theme, and those are some things that we're currently working on and making sure that we get hammered out. And also the final thing on the standalone Mabel, in our 3-2 defenses, like 3 dime, 2-3-6 Sam, dime 2-3-6 Will, dollar 3-2-6. But we have a play that we call cover 3 drop. Now that play is pretty good. It's essentially the same Mabel concept that I just told you: strong rotation, a deep safety dropping in curl flat. We got a nickel corner who's playing hard flat, but this time we have a linebacker in the 3-2 configuration to the strength side of the formation. He's playing a hook curl. But again, the thing that we're working on now is making sure that when number 2 goes vertical, we got a guy at that curl flat player. We want to make sure that he's walling off that number 2 vertical. But so those are some of the things that hopefully that clears things up for all the your listeners out there about how we adjust trips when we play nickel cover 3 match, cover 3 buzz match, skate, and Mabel. That's what we call it in code. And then why we use the name Mabel in the standalone play. Because again, for us, Mabel means flood. So that's easier to just kind of communicate, if you will, to users.
Good stuff, man. And, I know we got you for a little while, so I got 2 questions from the community. We'll keep it quick, then I'll throw it, to Smitty and Azur and see if they have any questions for you. And guys that are sending questions, you got to understand, A-Dub's time is pressing. I'm not going to be able to ask every question, so I'm going to honor the first 2 guys who responded to my tweet. The first guy is a loyal tweeter, goes by Brooklyn Core. He wants to know, is there any risk this year when people only send 1 or 2 rushers? Will cornerbacks, by any chance, get tired?
You're making reference to like the drop 10, drop 11, that type of thing?
Right.
Yeah, and that's something that we're actually working on right now to make sure that, that there are some balancing things that we want to make sure that we get correct there as far as like, do we have the DBs degrade their coverage abilities over time or, essentially running the ball, are these guys able to come in and make tackles unrealistically? So, yeah, this is an area that we're currently working on, and we're trying to make sure that if someone's going to use that tactic, that there may be some things that they expose themselves to on the other end of the spectrum, if you will.
Cool. And the next question here before I throw it to Smitty, and this is probably going to be an interesting answer because I remember in our interview, and we talk about this all the time, people seem to think that there should be a play that stops every offensive play, and there's no such thing, like you said. So the question is, are corner routes still like money or very powerful against man coverage?
Well, it's a good question. I wouldn't say necessarily powerful or unstoppable against man coverage, but here's the thing we want to get to when we talk about man coverage going forward. We want to talk about man coverage within context of what is the coverage concept we're playing. So that's the key that we really want to focus on as we move forward. But as far as this year, we definitely made some strides as far as balancing out man coverage where it's not as overpowered as people would consider it was last year. But at the same time, we do want to make sure that, we are still somewhat functional in different types of routes and route concepts that we're covering.
Good stuff, man. Smitty, I know you got a question or two for A-Dub while we got him.
Yeah, I had two questions actually that were sent to me, that were DM'd to me here. I'll read this first one here because this seems to be a bit more simpler here. I'll just read it verbatim, okay? It basically asks, will cover 2 buster be a viable check versus trips? And what he says is, I know it works well versus trips in real life. Will it give us another option besides Mabel/skate to defend trips?
Oh, yeah. Matter of fact, we have it set by default with the auto flip feature, which I'm sure a lot of your users are aware of that we have that, that it will align to the strength. And of course, when the offense aligns in trips, that's the strong side. So essentially, it's a very viable check. And, obviously, like every coverage, it does have some inherent weaknesses. We've talked a lot about 4 vertical trips. Well, cover 2 buster, in my opinion, is probably one of the better plays that you could, have in your defensive package if you expect your opponent to run the 4 verticals concepts from a trip standpoint, because, essentially, we have a middle read player who's in a cover 2 situation. He's going to carry number 3 down the middle. And then, of course, we got our vertical hook player, and then we got our cloud player. They're matched up on the other side as well. So essentially, you'll be able to do a lot of good things with the buster concept versus trips. Now, however, it is weak against flood, especially if you get number 3 going on a deep out. So you got to keep that in mind. And also the thing about buster, anytime you get concepts where you got a man side and a zone side, well, certain routes that are coming from the zone side to the man side, you got to be cognizant of that. So, it's a situational coverage, but it's definitely not something that, you probably can just sit in down after down, if you will.
Okay, that's great to know. And the last question here, I'll just read it out here. So he was talking to Matt Bowen last year about 2-seam, basically TCU's cover 5, which is what he's thinking what cover 2 carry is in Madden 17. Now, what the media is here, he's saying, he said versus trips, they made a Richie Louis call to determine who would carry number 3 vertical versus trips. Will the backside vertical hook dropper match number 3 vertical?
You mean as far as cover 2? I can speak to the cover 2 carry. I'm not, sure what TCU does as far as. Well, obviously I've seen some things on it, but I can't really speak for what they're doing in their defense. The trip situation when we get cover 2 carry. So essentially what we have is a backside vertical hook player. His default rule for us this year is anytime we get, we don't have a situation where we have a number 2, because that's usually who he's working off. He's looking at getting into his zone, and he's looking for any crosses that can be coming inside, especially from number 1. And then if that trips receiver, that deep over route, happens to come over to an area where he can actually pick it up, and he'll get that route. But for now, though, we're going to have the front side vertical hook player. He's vertical on number 2, and then we got a 3 receiver hook player in the carry play. He's walling off number 3. So, it's basically a defense again. It's primarily a better defense for 2-by-2 scenarios, but you can play it against trips. But trips for verticals, especially since we don't have a middle read in that play, that might be, a defense you want to keep an eye on.
Okay, thanks for that. Oh, good, AZ.
All right, what's going on right there? I got quick questions, 3 questions. One, hold on, I'm going to read it as well. It says, has man shading been implemented in Madden 17 to the point they want to know the effectiveness of shading, that if you call cover 1, robber, etc., to shade against tight end posts or compressed sets, like will shading take away, like let's just try to say you try and take away a slant. Will the cornerback play more inside to make it more difficult for the wide receiver to catch a slant on you? If you know what that person's calling and you call, you audible to defensive shading inside or outside.
Well, yeah, and this goes back to what we talked about earlier, similar topic when there was a man coverage question, I believe.
Yeah.
We want to, going into the future, we want to really make sure that we're technically sound in everything we're doing from a man coverage concepts. So the shading, that's a part of that. Because first we want to establish, well, what does good inside technique mean? Within this man coverage, within this coverage concept. What does outside technique mean when we're playing a particular man coverage concept? So we want to really make sure that we at first identify what those proper techniques are, inside, outside leverage within context of the coverage. And of course, now that would carry over to that particular defensive adjustment, that mechanic, whether or not, hey, I'm cover one, well, I want to shade inside or use the inside option. Well, now we would have, in theory, the proper techniques that corner would use to play inside technique versus a particular route. So that's something that, as we move forward, we definitely want to take a look at and make sure that those mechanics all mechanics that we have in game are working and they meet user expectations.
Okay, great. This question, because a lot of people in the community, or just who don't really know what it is to program and develop and engineer things that you do. If somebody was getting started or wanted to venture into what you do, what are some of the things that they need to do as far as like a career path along getting on those lines to be a game developer and like creating plays and using their knowledge of football to kind of assist what you do or do what you do?
Well, and this is a question I get asked a lot actually about, how do you get into this type of, industry? More specifically, how would I be able to get on the Madden team? Well, there's a lot of different paths, if you will. Obviously, you got your engineering track, you got your artist animating track, you got your producer designer track, then you got your QA track. So essentially, obviously, if you have passion, for the game and, you're essentially, knowledgeable and you have that driving, that desire, I mean, whatever you choose to do, if you work hard enough at it, you could definitely find your way with us. I mean, we have guys who've come up through the QA ranks to get here. We have guys, obviously, who've gone to school specifically for game design. There's a lot of college courses now, in college, even graduate level programs out there now that, offer courses and degrees, if you will, in this type of work. So there's a lot of different paths you can take to get here. It's really just, whatever it is that you have a interest in doing, and then, just trying to work towards achieving that.
All right, thanks. Great answer as well. And this is not poking the Madden 18 there, but just kind of asking you on a personal level, what is it that you want to do, I guess personally, or a personal goal that you want to accomplish with defense and just what you're working on going forward into the future? If you just had to lay something out and say, well, this is what I want to accomplish. Not trying to gauge any Madden 18 information, or just like, what is it that you've laid in the future that says, I want to get to this and have this, nailed down, and this is what I want to do. Like if you were to go to Rex and say, this is what I want to do with this going forward. Well,
obviously, we all talk as a group on a daily basis, consistent, regular basis. But just for me going forward in the future, I just want to make sure that 17, that all the stuff that we've been working on defensively from a coverage standpoint is good to go, so that, when, the game drops, it meets user expectations. Right now, all of my focus and energy is, on making sure that, like the thing we talked about earlier, is our Mabel concepts correct? Are our fire zone coverages, are they doing the correct thing? What about our match, our Tampa 2s? our hard flat assignments. Are they playing correctly? So right now, that's where all my focus and energy is trying to make sure all those things correct. But obviously, we do have an eye towards, 18 and things of that nature that we definitely want to get into. And, as we get further along down the road, we'll obviously address some of those things.
I appreciate that, A-Dub. Appreciate your time as well. I'll give it back to Sim.
Yeah, man, we definitely appreciate your time. And I don't know how much time you have enough, so I'll sneak in one last question and then give a quick reflection. If you could answer real quick the cover 2 and the Tampa 2 differences, because, I'll be honest, some of us play different levels of football. I played in the secondary. I have general knowledge, but obviously I don't have NFL knowledge and things like that. So if you could just remind me or educate me and others, what is the difference? What exactly is happening in a Tampa 2 versus a regular, the cover 2? Because it seems to look the same to the novice person.
Well, the easiest way I can probably just briefly just kind of go over what we do with Tampa 2, because obviously, believe it or not, we talked to one team. They told us, well, there's actually a difference between Tampa 2 and cover 2 buck. So, there's even with Tampa 2, there's different versions of Tampa 2. Certain teams, they do certain things with their middle read player, the linebacker who's responsible for carrying a vertical down the seam. Some teams have him open to the number 3 receiver side, and he's looking at number 1, 2, and 3 to determine who's a vertical threat to carry. Other teams may say, okay, well, we're going to have him open to the field. You see a lot more of that in college, but, you do see that from time to time in the pros. And then there's other versions where you say, okay, well, we're just going to have him open to speed, meaning which, okay, whoever we determine through game plan is the fastest receiver. Well, that's the guy that we're going to open to see whether or not we get a vertical threat before we get to our, spot in our zone, and then we flip our hips and we're looking for crosses. But for us, we're opening to number 3, and we're looking for number 1, 2, and 3 to determine vertical threats down the middle. And once we get a vertical threat, let's take an easy example for you. Use your listeners to kind of visualize high form normal. Let's say we got the tight end streak to a hot route streak, and then we got number 1 on the outside on a streak and number 1 on the other side to a streak. Well, the side that number 3 releases to, in this case, the fullback or the back were to go to the tight end side, even if they blocked, the fact that they went that way, well, we're going to open to that side. And then now we're looking at 1 and 2. So we see the tight end, he's number 2, he's going vertical. He's threatening the middle of the field now. So we're going to open to him, and we're going to essentially carry him down the middle of the field. And then, of course, the way we have it with our corners, the cloud flat players in our default Tampa 2. So the things that your listeners, that they should know about their role. They're making a 2-3-1 read, okay? They're looking at number 2 first, inside at number 3, what he's doing, and finally number 1. But the thing that I think they need to know, if number 2 is vertical for our cloud flat player, that pretty much trumps everything. His deal is, okay, well, I got to think with number 2 because obviously he has to protect that deep outside area, 15 to 20 yards between him and the safety, that whole shot. We call it, we're sticking to the base of the fade, if you will, because we're trying to protect against the 7 route. So and then, of course, we're going to break on the quarterback's throw motion to anything thrown in the flat. So that's, for us, our base for the corners, and then the middle read player, and then our 2 curl players are what we call vertical hooks. Well, they're essentially dropping to number 1. Well, actually, they're dropping in the seam. They're looking for any crossers by number 1 coming inside or or anybody coming underneath. But the key thing to remember with them, the vertical hook player away from where the middle read is dropping, he's also a vertical carry player. That's why we call him vertical hook. So let's say, same example, we get I-form twins. We get number 1 and number 2 go vertical, okay? But let's say we just talked about our middle read player opens to number 3. Well, let's say we got a nub tight end, and we get both backs released to the side of the nub tight end, where our middle read player is going to open that way. Well, now we got a number 2 going vertical down the middle. Well, what happens? Well, our vertical hook now, he becomes the whole player, if you will. He's the vertical carry. So I'm sure you guys have probably seen this and probably tried to wonder, okay, why is the middle linebacker not being the vertical carry here? Well, that's why. So we got rules set up for a lot of different scenarios to make sure that, you know, we have a lot of the concepts, the base concepts that offenses like to use covered. So that for us is how we play our Tampa 2. Very, very basic, very simple stuff. But, you know, again, you know, the true Tampa 2, though, is really revolves around the middle linebacker, though, getting down the middle of the field.
Man, well, you know how it goes, man. When we talk to you, I mean, we could talk forever and ever, but I know you said you had about 30 minutes, so we don't want to hold you too much further past that. So, you know, I'll let you.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. We're glad to have you. And I'm sure we'll talk to you again at a later time. But if you could address this real quick, this is one thing I wanted you to address with. You can end it with this. A lot of people, you know, they seem to think that it's all or nothing. You know, you can do it all or you don't do anything. I've even seen people say, I've had debates with people saying, why would they do underneath coverage and all of that if they're not going to also have the deep zones? You know, it makes no sense. My argument to that was, you know, just my personal opinion was, well, if they didn't do anything this year, you'd complain about that. But if you could explain, you know, why you guys did that, as well as why you just can't do everything in 1 year. You know, if you could kind of address that real quick, and then we'll let you get out of here, because people need to hear it other than from just us. Because, you know, we just talk noise when we on it, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like anything else. I mean, a yearly title like Madden, obviously, it's a game that people look forward to coming out every year. And obviously, you know, with the sports title, you know, you get that fresh content. Well, obviously the caveat that comes along with that is, you know, unlike a lot of other video game genres, if you will, you know, we have a shorter development cycle to really get a lot of the things in that we really want to do. But, you know, it's really just comes down to a time situation. As much as I would like to get every single zone assignment concept, both underneath and short, well, you know, you have a finite number of resources, engineers, artists, you know, even QA testers to work with to get these things in. So, you know, just to get one zone assignment in, I mean, that's a significant undertaking. So it's really one of those deals where it's just time and resources. Because again, you know, you don't want to do a whole lot of things and be good at nothing. You know, you'd rather go ahead and get the few things in that you are working on and make sure those are nice and polished. And then, of course, you know, we want to make sure, obviously, as we move forward in the future, that we hit the deep zones as well. But it's definitely not that we didn't. Now, I will say this, you know, we didn't totally ignore deep zones. We have done some tuning with some of the deep zones, and even we got some things down the road that I'm not at liberty to speak on, but we got some things in store for deep zones, you know, definitely for 17, actually, that we're going to definitely be looking at.
Well, man, we definitely appreciate the time, man. If there's any last thing you just want to leave the community with before you go, man, feel free.
No, it was basically, again, Madden 17, Madden NFL 17, excuse me. It feels great even at this stage. I mean, obviously you guys have been down to the studio, and you guys have been out to EA Play and E3, and you've seen the game, you've played the game, and a lot of the feedback that we've been getting so far, not only from you guys, but even definitely out of EA Play and E3, was very positive. People like the direction that we're going. So essentially, we're working hard every day, and believe me, everybody in the building, all the way from Rex all the way down to, our most junior testers, working hard, trying to make sure that the game that, we put out there on August 23rd is something that our fans will get a lot of enjoyment playing. And, that's something that we really take seriously. So, yeah, I just want to let the community know that, we're right there with them. I mean, we want to make sure that Madden is the best possible game it can be.
Man, well, there it is, guys. I mean, you're hearing it from these guys' mouths themselves, that they know football. That notion of saying that these guys don't know football, it should be pretty much dead right now. So, man, A-Dub, man, we definitely appreciate you coming on. Yeah, man, we appreciate
the football aspect of it. Yeah, we definitely watch football stuff. Yeah, we like to think we know what we're talking about.
Yeah, man. Well, we may or may not see you before launch, but I'm sure we'll talk to you again, man. So, we're going to provide our feedback privately on things that we know you guys are trying to work on in terms of before launch, and like you said, a couple things that you guys may be looking at for continuous development. So we'll let you go for now, man. But we appreciate you coming on tonight.
Hey, it was great being on with you guys, and definitely look forward to doing it again in the future, man. You guys have a good night.
Absolutely, man. You do the same.
Thanks, man.
Thanks. You do the same, man.
Once again, guys, thanks for coming by. And if you want to interact with me live, head on over to Sim Standard Radio every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, along with Smitty and Azure Effect. The call-in number for the show is down in the description. Now, of course, for more content, go ahead and click the link above. And before you go, don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. All right, guys. Until next time, lights out.